March 9th, 1945. While most of the world slept, 334 American B-29 superfortresses thundered through the darkness toward Japan's capital. What happened next would eclipse even the atomic bombings in sheer destructive power, yet remains one of World War II's most overlooked tragedies. Welcome to World War IIpedia, where we uncover the untold stories that shaped our world. This is the boundless story of Operation Meetinghouse, the night Tokyo burned, and why the Japanese called it the Night of the Black Snow. By early 1945, Japan was a nation on its knees, but still refusing to surrender. Traditional precision bombing had failed miserably. High-altitude raids were scattered by fierce jet streams, and Japanese defenses remained formidable. Something had to change. Enter Major General Curtis LeMay, a man who would reshape the very nature of warfare. LeMay faced an impossible situation: end the war quickly, or watch thousands more American soldiers die in a planned invasion of Japan. His solution was as brilliant as it was terrifying. But here's what most people don't know. LeMay's decision wasn't made in isolation. American engineers had been secretly testing incendiary weapons at the Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah, using exact replicas of Japanese homes built by Hollywood set designers. They discovered that Japanese cities, with their wooden and paper construction, were essentially tinderboxes waiting for a spark. LeMay made a decision that shocked even his own crews. He ordered the removal of all defensive guns and armor from his B-29s. This wasn't just about carrying more bombs. It was psychological warfare against his own men. Without weapons, there was no choice but to complete the mission. The target? Tokyo's Shitamachi district, a densely packed area where over 1 million people lived and worked in a maze of wooden buildings, small factories, and narrow streets. Intelligence reports revealed something crucial. Japanese cities weren't like American cities. Industrial facilities weren't segregated into separate zones. They were woven directly into residential neighborhoods. Here's a chilling detail most historians overlook. American planners calculated that destroying Japan's 6 major cities would eliminate 7.6 million man-months of labor. They weren't just targeting buildings. They were targeting the people who built Japan's war machine. As darkness fell on March 9th, weather conditions were perfect for disaster. Dry winter air and winds gusting up to 30 miles per hour created ideal conditions for a firestorm. The Japanese had no idea what was coming. At 12:15 a.m., the first Pathfinder aircraft dropped their markers, creating a giant X of fire over central Tokyo. What followed was a carefully orchestrated symphony of destruction. Wave after wave of B-29s released 1,665 tons of incendiaries, including 500,000 cylinders of napalm and white phosphorus. But here's what makes this raid truly unique. The bombs weren't designed to explode on impact. The M69 incendiaries were engineered to penetrate rooftops, then ignite inside buildings, making firefighting nearly impossible. Within minutes, isolated fires began merging into something unprecedented, a firestorm that generated its own weather system. Temperatures at ground level reached 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt copper. The fire created hurricane-force winds that sucked oxygen from the air, suffocating thousands who never saw a flame. Survivors described a horrifying phenomenon. The fire was so intense, it created its own tornado of flame, spinning through the streets and consuming everything in its path. Flight engineer Jim Wild, aboard one of the B-29s, later recalled, "The world beneath us was an inferno, and the heat and smoke quickly permeated our aircraft. The thermal updrafts were so powerful, they lifted 65-ton bombers thousands of feet into the air, then dropped them like stones." Here's a detail that will haunt you. Many victims weren't burned to death. They were boiled alive. The intense heat turned the water in Tokyo's canals into scalding steam. Thousands who sought refuge in the water died from the heat, not the flames. When dawn broke on March 10th, 16 square miles of Tokyo had been reduced to ash. Conservative estimates put the death toll at 100,000 people, more than Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. But the true number may never be known. Entire families simply vanished, leaving no trace except shadows burned into concrete. Haruyo Nihei, a survivor, described the aftermath. The air was filled with black snow, the cremated remains of our neighbors, our friends, our families, falling like a gentle snowfall across the ruins of our city. 1 million people were left homeless overnight. The lucky ones fled to Tokyo's wealthy districts, where they discovered something that would fuel decades of resentment. While working-class neighborhoods burned, the affluent areas remained untouched. This wasn't an accident. It was a calculated decision to preserve Japan's leadership while destroying its industrial base. Operation Meetinghouse was just the beginning. LeMay's success led to a campaign that would destroy 40% of Japan's urban areas. By June 1945, American bombers had run out of significant targets. Yet Japan still refused to surrender. Here's the most shocking fact. Despite killing more people in a single night than any other air raid in history, the Tokyo firebombing didn't end the war. It took 2 atomic bombs to finally break Japan's will to fight. Curtis LeMay later reflected on his actions with chilling honesty. If we lose the war, we'll be tried as war criminals. He understood the moral implications of his decisions, but believed the alternative, a ground invasion of Japan, would cost even more lives. Today, the Night of the Black Snow remains largely forgotten in the West, overshadowed by the atomic bombings. But in Japan, survivors still gather each March 10th to remember the night their city burned. The raid fundamentally changed warfare forever. It proved that civilian populations could be targeted as legitimate military assets, setting a precedent that would echo through Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. Perhaps most disturbing of all, to this day, the United States has never apologized for the Tokyo firebombing. In official records, it remains classified simply as a wartime military operation. The Night of the Black Snow reminds us that in total war, there are no innocent bystanders, only survivors and statistics. It was a night when the rules of warfare changed forever, and the world learned that sometimes victory comes at a price too terrible to fully comprehend. What do you think? Was Operation Meetinghouse a necessary evil that shortened the war? Or was it an unforgivable war crime? Let me know in the comments below.